guy I've met recently is Rod Dreher. I've had him on the podcast and a live stream recently. He wrote this book called Live Not by Lies. Wonderful book. And on this scale, and you've got to read the book to see what he's talking about, but on this scale of intersectionality, notice what Dreher says about this. He says, curiously, the poor are relatively low on the hierarchy of oppression. For example, a white Pentecostal man living on disability in a trailer park is an oppressor, while a black lesbian Ivy League professor is oppressed. You know, it just doesn't seem to make any sense. So things are changing in that regard. And to see the source of some of this, you can go back to the beginnings of the Soviet Union. This guy right here was the head of the Ukrainian police in 1918, Martin Latsis. And here's what he told his agents about their work, because they were creating a class society. And he told his agents, his policemen, this. Here's how you're supposed to conduct yourself. He said, we're not fighting against single individuals. We are exterminating, this is a French word for the upper class, we're exterminating them, the bourgeoisie, as a class. Do not look in materials you have gathered for evidence that a suspect acted or spoke against the Soviet authorities. The first question you should ask him is what class he belongs to. What is his origin, education, profession? These questions should determine his fate. This is the essence of the Red Terror. So we're going to judge people based on their class, not based upon anything they have or haven't done. Now, unfortunately for this guy, 20 years later, the tide turned against him, and the Soviets considered him, at that point, a traitor, and he was executed by firing squad. In 1956, the Soviets reversed their judgment on him and tried to rehabilitate his reputation, so he became more of an accepted person in Soviet history. They even put him on a postage stamp. So here's a guy who was trying to convict people based on their class, and it ultimately came back and bit him 20 years later. Now, you may have seen a couple of years ago an exchange between Jordan Peterson and Cathy Newman trying to say that, Jordan, you don't have a right to say what you say because by saying that you might offend somebody, and that's wrong. You don't have the right to do that. To use your free speech in such a way that someone is offended is immoral. Where's she getting that standard from? They don't reason from abstract to the practical. They, as we've already seen, ignore reason or demote reason over experience. So, let's now see how it lines up with biblical Christianity. People are born into unequal circumstances. The Bible admits that, right? Of course. We talked about this last time. Not everyone's going to start from the same spot. We know that. Also, people form groups and often other those outside their groups. Here's the way that we, and there's probably other ways, we other people. By our race, really ethnicity is one race, the human race, but right? Ethnicity, gender, age, religion, denomination, politics, money, vocation, education, nationality, what region we're from, even what neighborhood we're from. You know, yeah, that guy's from the other side of the tracks, right?